One of the common questions I get is, how in the hell do you expect to fund all this, son? Well, it's actually not nearly as difficult as it may seem. Okay, imagine the commercial, corporation, your average major corporation. You've got a well-funded CEO. You've got a board of directors in most of their cases, which in our case will only be paid per diem or subsistence pay, and that won't be restricted to expenses, and it's basically a per diem. So, they'll have room and board at one of the rural development centers wherever the meeting is held, and they will have, enough to eat, and, most of their needs are taken care of. So a lot of the average costs are removed from the equation in terms of that regards. The corporation is making money. The incorporated body should be, when the principles of incorporation are such that you've got three companies, one selling mustard seeds, one selling vinegar, one making and selling vinegar, one growing and selling mustard seeds, and one selling mustard and condiments. And each one buys from the other, and two will show a marked loss and one shows a vast profit, and it all washes out in the end. The principles in this way ensure that 70% of all proceeds generated will be returned to the people. Now, that's not to say 70% of gross. We're still going to probably be paying outrageous salaries to the CEOs. Guess what? That's how corporations become successful. If you want to build a new economic system and you can get around the proverbial powers that be, and you can build something, if you can build a circular economic system that competes with BRICS or competes with the Federal Reserve, and you can do it without disappearing, more power to you, Hey, but we're not ready to take on that fight. We're not going to try to take on that fight. There's no need to take on that fight. We're going to work well within the confines of this system. We're going to give, render under Caesar that which is Caesar's. It really is quite basic. We're not asking for any special tax benefits or anything, but your corporation is still going to have expenses. But at the end of the day, they're making money too. Difference being 30% can be utilized if it's necessary. We figured that we can probably do overhead, operational expenses, and personnel for 20%. Some people think that's a little bit optimistic, but we're required by law to spend no more than 30% on all of that. We're required by law to spend at least 70% on everything we do. So the income from the corporations, if they've got quarterly projections, we can utilize those funds to fund the schools, to fund the creation of more food carts, to fund the creation of more food stands, to establish the funds to create restaurants, full-scale franchised restaurants. Then we do so. In the beginning, we'll be leaning heavily on the commercial operations to keep the schools operational. In the UN program that we proposed, we do have funding established. It was initially approved for the first 3 years. We're trying to extend that to 9 because we've lost a couple of major sources of revenue from the variations we've had to introduce into the program. So we're trying to establish that for funding for operational expenses for up to 9 years, and if we can establish the funding for 9 years, that should allow us to reach a sufficient level of economic maturity. With the original program set up the way it was, we estimated 3 to 3.5 years for economic sustainability. Under the current system, primarily focusing on the reforestation, that may be debatable. It may be a little bit hard-pressed. If we can get any of the commercial land developments going, then there's a great opportunity that, my split from that will be utilized to fund programs. I've always, in the U.S., in the Philippines, I've always lived a simplistic lifestyle, minimalist. Whether I lived in the U.S. or in the Philippines or anywhere else, Central America, South America, in Mexico, which is in North America, by the way, or anywhere else I've lived, I've been very, very contented with a minimalist lifestyle. So we're trying to, get some commercial ventures going, and anything I can secure for myself or the foundation through that will be routed directly to programs and the maintenance, the operational expenses for what we have going. So there's a lot going on. It's very interesting. It's very involved. It's very complex. But it's not at all, again, it's not at all unobtainable. It's not unmanageable, and it's not beyond reach. It's not fantastic. It's not far-fetched. It's not at all unreasonable. It's merely utilizing integrated and adopted principles to establish systemically sustainable human growth and development, and it is very, very realistic. So we'll see what we will see, and in the meantime, please like, share, subscribe, come back for more. And if you are interested in knowing more, I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you are interested in commercial investments, commercial land development, commercial real estate development, private island resorts, marinas, diving opportunities. The diving vessels here don't do extremely well because they utilize the larger vessels, which we'd like to do eventually, but we need to establish the private resorts first in order to ensure that they're a viable income opportunity and not an added liability. But there are some very viable opportunities for private island investments, commercial land investments, and commercial land development, primarily resort developments and water activities along the ocean. I live inland. I live far from the ocean, but those are where we're focusing on the commercial land development, because that's where the money is. So if you have any interest, please let me know. Thank you. Bye. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below.